Hi there, welcome to episode 16 of my Star Wars Clone Wars Wisdom series. So I'm using the opening statements from the series to talk about wisdom, to talk about leadership, and kind of how I approach coaching and consulting when I do in my business. So this way people can find out what I'm about, what I do, how things work, all that, where I'm coming from, basically. So it's part of that, but really it's just, okay, let's talk about wisdom, right? So maybe we can help ourselves be better people, if you will. Okay, so the opening statement on this one is truth enlightens the mind, but won't always bring happiness to your heart. So, two parts, obviously, and I want to start with the first word and I want to distinguish something here that I think is helpful in this conversation. Truth. It's capitalized here because it's the first word in the sentence, but I think it's a good reminder that there are actually kind of two things to think about truth. And one of them is there's capital T truth, something that is without our belief in it. It just exists. It is. It's reality. It's just there, right? We don't need consensus on it. We don't have to believe in it even. And there's certainly examples in history when that's been true and we found it to be, we thought one thing wasn't true. Truth is this. Okay. And I think, I'll just say this now. Science is sort of the idea of uncovering what is the truth, trying to get us as close as possible to truth as we possibly can as human beings, which points to the other part of this whole thing of truth, and that is the idea of perception is reality, right? So what's true for people is true for them. They believe that. That is true for them. It's not just an opinion. It is true. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's truth, capital T. So there's small t, true for people, and there's truth, capital T, outside of people, so to speak. Okay, how does that apply? What's that got to do with this? Well, okay, just the statement itself. Knowing truth enlightens the mind. Meaning we have what we believe to be true about something because of the filters that we grow up with, that we develop over time to help us navigate this crazy world we're in. So, and that's a good thing, by the way. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's truth all the time. So when you find out more of the truth, it actually gives you more information. That enlightens your mind. So that's a real simple version of that. Now, how that applies to leadership. So if you're a director, CEO, committee chair, whatever, right? In any organization, volunteer, profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter. Times will come up when people are arguing over something. It's supposed to be done this way. It's going to be done a certain way. No, I want to do it this way. Whatever, right? So people are going to argue about a scenario. So it's not the specifics of the scenario I want to talk about. I want to talk about how to handle that situation. And that's where this statement actually is helpful. So usually you've got person A, like, we're supposed to do it like this. This is the way it is. And person B goes, no, we're actually supposed to do it like this, and you're wrong. And so there's this right-wrong conversation. So that brings up, well, there's always two sides to a story. And I actually beg to differ in that. I think there's often more than two. and really, you as the leader often are pulled into that situation saying, all right, you pick which one of us is right, which one of us is wrong. Which, if you're thinking from a wisdom standpoint, avoid being put in that position. And you're going to be anyway, but learn to be adept at switching that to a different type of conversation. And here's what I'm talking about. In that scenario, there's actually four sides to the story that's going on here. Person A's what's true for them. Person B's what's true for them. Your what's true for you and your filter and what's going on here. And then there's truth in the middle somewhere, hopefully. Or maybe way out here. Who knows? Whatever. Right? But there's four things actually going on in this scenario. You as the wise leader will find more success, in my opinion, if you understand that what you're trying to do is not pick a winner or loser in the conversation. What you're trying to do is get everyone to work together and to look at what's truth, if possible, and or, which you gotta be careful with that because that can make everybody wrong. You don't want that either, right? So when you make one person right, one person wrong, well, now you've created a dynamic with the loser in the situation where they're now mad at you and you weren't even involved in the whole thing in the first place. Okay, so you want to avoid that because that just creates more issues for that whole thing. So a better way to do it is look at it, realizing that there's the four parts of it, having a conversation to have A, be aware that what's true for them is true for them. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's right for them, and we don't have to change that. And there's truth. So those might or might not be the same thing. So if you can get them to understand that, then they can say, well, and that's how B sees it. Now, what's true for them, and there's truth, right? And they may argue a little bit, but really, if you can get A to understand, like, what's true for them isn't the only answer, isn't the only way to see it, then they can begin the process of going, if they understand where B's coming from, their values, their filter to some degree, they can begin to see that there's a different way to look at the situation. And then you get B also to do the same thing, where B gets to, okay, yeah, I can see there might be a little different way. Great. Can you see how A would look at it this way and why they came up with that solution? Great. So the more you can understand yourself, all the self-reflection and digging in on why you believe what you believe can help you stay in that space of getting other people to see that, rather than it being a do it my way, or can't you guys just, hey, look, everybody's different, just whatever, right? You could do that too. That's a different way to handle it, but I'm talking about a deeper conversation and trying to get to truth, capital T, for both of them as close as possible, and that they both have their own vantage point, and they're both valid. So the more you can do that, I think. Now, it's not easy, right? And leadership isn't necessarily easy. It's a lot harder than most people think. It's not just barking orders and making people do stuff. That's not leadership, okay? That's power. It's a form of leadership, but it's a very limited form of leadership. Anyway, I'm talking about a much broader, a much more helpful form of leadership. Anyway, so that's how that idea of truth, enlightening the mind, can be very, very helpful, is to understand that you have your perception and then there's truth, and getting everyone involved to see that that's a possibility, and then they can begin to see the other side, the other person's version, and then not make it wrong and just say, oh, that is another option. I get that. Here's what I'm seeing. And then you can start working on the, quote, compromise, or a third idea that they both hadn't seen because they were stuck in what they saw. Right, so you as the leader, it's to facilitate that kind of conversation. Will get you certainly a lot more on the relationship side of things, a lot more respect as someone they can go to when things are not working the way they're supposed to. Okay, so there's that. Now the second part, right, is this idea of truth not bringing happiness to your heart. Right, so you've got the idea that excuse me. That truth, right, there's truth that's outside of you. And just because you know something more clearly doesn't necessarily mean that's going to bring you joy, all right? So a lot of times, you think, wow, the more I know about something, the easier it's going to be and all that. So maybe not, right? We don't know. But that's something to wrestle with. And here's where it doesn't bring happiness right away. I can think of a couple different ways that happens. One of them is when you you have your belief, right? You're presented with truth, something that is irrefutable, that is not what you believe. And then you begin to question, like, wait a minute, how did that happen? And for most people, that's extremely hard to take in. It's very easy to dismiss that and just say, oh, that was just, nope, can't be. That does not bring happiness to understand, like, wow, I might be way off the beaten path here, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind, that can happen. So the other thing is, let's see if I need to say anything more about that. No, really, like, that's the biggest thing, is when you get something so different from your beliefs, very difficult, that's jarring to your being, like your ego and all that. That's difficult for people. And to be able to look at that takes a lot of self-awareness. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is similar in some ways, but say you find out, like, you're going through your life, you find out some information about something that happened in the past or is happening, and you realize your perception of it was not correct in the sense of truth or in the best way possible to handle things. And so you realize you've hurt relationships. You've harmed people relationship-wise, right? Not necessarily physically, but you've damaged the relationship somehow. Now you got to wrestle with, oh man, I really messed that up. That doesn't necessarily bring you happiness, right? But it's the truth, right? It's closer to the truth. So when truth is different than your perception, you realize, wow, if I'd known that, I would have handled it differently. Wow, okay, I got to go back and fix that. I need to tone, whatever. So that is the main thing about truth not bringing happiness. It's just truth. It is. That's the other thing about this. So with that in mind, that's what I've got. I think I would give this a thumbs up for sure, in the sense of it's always a good idea to remember that there are 4 sides to every situation, at least if, when there's you trying to solve the situation like I mentioned. And then there's, self-reflection can be helpful, but it also can bring up like, wow, I need to fix some things. And that's not always fun. But once you get clarity, you can then move forward with a little bit more confidence that you are doing the right things for the right reasons. Okay, that's what I have. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.